Hello everyone, it is I. The roads here suck. We're almost at 220,000 miles, and I believe the starter gave out. I'll go more into that later, but the way I want to structure this video is I want to show you step by step what to do as far as instructions go. Then I'm going to attempt to do it, and then after the fact I'll discuss more. So let's just get right to it. I am unsure if you'll be able to see this, but I'll give it my best shot. We are looking at the service manual for the 2005 LX service manual. And this is the 2005 Chrysler 300 with the 3.5 liter V6. So step 1 is disconnect the negative battery cable. Install steering wheel holder locking steering wheel in straight ahead position, which we don't have, but we can make do without that. Raise vehicle and support. Remove the underbody splash shield. And then 5 is, here's the starter assembly. 6 is remove the intermediate steering shaft center bolt. So there's also some diagrams here. So here's that shaft bolt. You remove that center bolt. This is the assembly, by the way. This number 7 shows the bolt removed. 8 is separate the intermediate steering shaft upper and lower shaft. Again, a little diagram. 9. Disconnect the electrical connection from the starter. So it's like a little connector. Remove the 3 starter mounting bolts and wiring clip. So you remove the bolts, the wiring clip, and then pull starter forward and down. Work starter up and around exhaust. Work starter past the intermediate steering shaft. And remove starter from vehicle. And installation is the reverse, I imagine. I'd just like to take a moment to say right to repair is a very wonderful and beautiful thing. Imagine if you were forced to go to a dealer and pay for parts and labor. I did get the starter from Advanced Auto Parts. In this case, it cost me $80 or so, with all the coupons and promo codes and all that I applied. But yep, this would be the step-by-step instructions. I do have a Haynes manual, but this one has nice diagrams. So now that I just showed you guys all of this, let's get to work. As per the instructions, we are removing the negative battery cable, which is located in the trunk under the cover thing here. So this is a 10mm bolt, and we have removed the negative battery connection. I'm in a little bit of a tight space now, so it's going to be hard to try and show you, but I'll do my best. We are underneath the car, underneath the driver's side, okay, and here we are behind the engine, under the transmission, behind the driver's side exhaust pipe. We have this linkage, and I believe this is that steering linkage they were talking about. And the starter, I am unsure if you're able to see it, but it is that rusty looking, yeah, that rusty looking assembly over there. Should be dead ahead. It looks like the brown thing that's mounted onto the silver thing. I'll pull it out for you later, but for now we're going to be dealing with this linkage. This is a 10mm bolt. It's a terrible angle, but it can be done. Okay, that is off. It's actually proving to be very stubborn. We got the bolt undone, and then we get some like Allen keys or screwdrivers or something and try to move it out of place, and it's still very difficult. So we got the linkage out of the way. It was the top part of this linkage that moved into the car, so we got that off. And now we are... So now we've got a breaker bar, an extension, and a 15mm socket. It doesn't ratchet, so that's the painful part. Okay, so it is incredibly tight, but you can see that's the starter, and right now I'm trying to get rid of the cables on the top here. So I've got one hand through here with a wrench trying to take these connectors off, and I've got one hand through here holding the starter off, because the steps said remove the cables and then the starter bolts, but I removed the bolts first, so I'm holding it in place with one hand and undoing the bolts with the other hand, but of course I'm running out of hands, so I can't film it. But that's what's going on right now. I'm trying to remove the electrical connectors. There's no good way of showing you guys, but there's a line here that I'm wiggling around right now that was bolted in. I removed this bolt to give me some wiggle room. Once I gave myself some more wiggle room, I noticed there was a red cable. So just removing the bolt on the back of this, and I'll show you later, there is a bolt on the back of this that I removed, but there is a bracket holding a red cable in place. So I took an Allen key and I dislodged that bracket holding the red cable in place, and now it should be completely free. So I'm going to try and wrestle this out now, and we will see how it goes. Well, there it is. It's not easy. Okay, it's simple, but it is very exhausting and not easy at all. Okay, so if the front of the car is that way and this side is the driver's side, right? Then it would be in there about like this, right? And it is an extremely cramped space. Now, notice this wire goes into this bolt and it doesn't do anything. This bolt here has a connector, like a bracket that goes over this that's held down with a washer. You undo the washer, you have to take this bracket out, okay? Of course, these three bolts, what we've done is we undone them, and then we realized it was hard to turn this bolt, this nut. So what we did was we reinserted two bolts so that this wouldn't rotate in position. We grabbed, I believe this was a 13 millimeter, and we removed that nut and removed that bracket. Took the three bolts out. There was a plastic connector here. We unhooked it, and at that point it was completely free, completely loose. But again, the space is so tight, it is incredibly difficult to get it out of there, even when you go by the dealership instructions and the Haynes manual instructions. We ended up taking the bolt off for, I believe it was the oil coolant line. It's like a little, I might have caught it on video. I'll try to show it again if I remember when I'm putting this back in, but it was like a silver line that was, there was a bolt holding it in place. I took it out and you're able to pull down on it, and then you just have to sort of pull this out as hard as you can and hope for the best. Finagle it a little bit and whatnot, but that's the old starter. Everything hurts. Again, it's not complex, but it's still very difficult. We're going to put the new starter in. So, we're going to take this, we're going to jam it in there. We're going to take the bolts, not in these bolt holes, but we're going to use the holes that are already put on the car, I guess you could say. We're going to put the bolts through them. We're going to get the gasket, we're going to put that through, and then we're going to take this, and you know, this, we've already squeezed this in that space, so we're just going to lift it up onto the bolts and tighten it down. Then we're going to go up here, we're going to take that bracket, we're going to slide it in, and we're going to tighten down this nut. I should probably remove that before I even begin. Then we're going to take the plastic connector, we're going to hook it in, and that's that. And then we're just going to tighten the hose that I undid for, I think it was the oil cooling, and then we're going to connect the steering linkage again. On paper, this is incredibly simple, but this is such a confined space that this is actually an incredibly difficult job, despite it only being 3 bolts, 1 nut, and 1 clip. It's such a confined space, and I need both hands. This is why I'm telling you what I'm going to be doing now. So, here we go. Okay, so, I'm very sorry, viewers, but I did lie a little bit. What happened was, as soon as I went under the car, I found out that I had hurt my neck so much that I actually barely got out from under the car. It turns out, when you're laying on the concrete for 5 hours, sort of straining your neck to look around and all that stuff, yeah, I didn't have a good time. So, I did have a family member jump in, and when we installed it, it was actually a lot easier than the removal, because we already sort of knew the motions, there was no rust, everything was cleaner and therefore more visible. I will say this, the oil cooler line, which is that silver line that we undid with 1 bolt, instead of pushing it down, when we were installing it, we pushed it up, and this gave us enough clearance to push the starter through that gap into where it needed to be. We put the 3 bolts through, we put the red power cord on, we clipped the plastic black connector on, and then we just rejoined the steering linkage and the that bolt that held that cooling line in place. I wish I got to show you guys, but like I said, I was in, I couldn't do it today, and then a family member offered to jump in and handle it, and I wasn't going to make him help me out and record a YouTube video, but installation is reverse of removal, and it's a little bit more straightforward, but nonetheless, again, on paper, this is a very simple repair, but it is very difficult to do in practice because of the very, very tightly constrained, or it's just a very small, tight space. And yeah, it's just very difficult. I would budget 2 days to do this. 1 day to remove and 1 day to install. This is probably one of the more harder repairs I've ever done, and actually, if I were to take this car to a mechanic, and if they offered to do it for $250, I would definitely pay that and have them do it. Now, I've Googled it, and Google tells me the average price is between $400 to $500, so if you do it yourself, you're probably going to save a lot of money, but again, I would budget 2 days to do it, and I actually ended up feeling very sore after the removal of the starter. Because I was just laying on the concrete, craning my neck up, and after about 5 hours of that, I actually just wasn't able to carry on any longer, so there's that. But I will tell you this. We'll turn the car off, we'll open the door, we'll close the door, or actually we'll just open the door so you can hear it better, but I'll put the key in the ignition and I'll turn it for you guys. It sounds brand new and I love it. And it starts up every time now. The thing is, what made me think that this was the starter was that I would, let's say, start up my car in the morning and go do some groceries. And then I would turn the key, and all of the instrument cluster, all of the electronics, everything would light up, start up normally. But then when I would turn the key, absolutely nothing would happen. The engine wouldn't even crank, wouldn't even try to crank. That happened enough that I grew concerned, and one day, it just wouldn't start at all. So I lifted the car up, and I banged on the starter with my breaker bar, and then it started right up. So to me, the obvious culprit was the starter. So that's why I went and replaced it. I wish this was a more informative video. I do apologize. I wish I could do better filming it, but again, I've only got 2 hands, and it was a tight space, where if I inserted my hand, I pretty much blocked the whole view anyway. And like I said, it's definitely a very hard repair. On paper, it's very simple. You can do it, but budget a lot of time and a lot of stress towards it. Just take it piece by piece, very little by little, and you can do it, but again, very hard and time consuming. Thank you all so much for watching. I do hope that this helped. If you liked the video, please subscribe, and if you didn't like it, please subscribe. Yeah, that's my idea of a joke. But anyways, take care, guys. Thank you so much. You're great, and bye-bye.